Hi, welcome to our latest bonus chat. This is from our pod recording looking back over Sharks v Leinster. If you missed it, you'll find it on Apple, Spotify, and all the other usual places. Now, after a successful enough South African tour, Leinster now turn their attention back to the Champions Cup with Harlequins coming to Croke Park next weekend. And all going well for the boys in blue, there might be a quarterfinal in the following week as well. That's as optimistic as my uber superstitious nature will allow me to be. So after 18 matches this season, looking at over 50 different players, what do we now think is our best matchday squad going into the business end of the season? Not for the first time, we're going to use the worst possible method of selecting a squad. I'll be nominating a bench. Connor will take the pack. And first up, we have David, who is giving us his ideal backline.
Yeah, so I think a lot of this backline writes itself, but there might be one or two positions where there could be some questions. So at number nine, I think fairly obviously it has to be Jameson Gibson Park. The fulcrum behind a lot of what Leinster and Ireland do. I don't think there can be really any question if he's fit, he starts. Number 10, has to be Sam Prendergast. I think, Kieran Frawley will lament some of the missed opportunities in South Africa. I thought Ross Byrne came out of it looking very well, but I think it's pretty clear at this stage that Sam Prendergast is seen as the future. Six Nations didn't go perfectly for him, but it didn't go terribly either. 4 wins from five. It's as good as we did last year. And I think he'll have learned a lot from it, particularly the speed of that France game. So I think it'll be Sam starting at 10. Number 11, James Lowe. Once again, so key to so much of what both teams do in terms of attack. Someone who can just create something out of nothing. I think, he's 32 now, but there's not really any doubt that for as long as he's playing, he's probably going to be first choice in that slot out in the left wing. At 12, this was kind of the first questionable one. It's a weird one. You wouldn't have thought a team that has Robbie Henshaw and Gary Ringrose in it would be going looking for a world class centre, but now that we have Jordy Barrett, I don't think there's a way we can not play him. So I think Barrett will start at 12. I would certainly have Jordy Barrett starting at 12. I'd have Gary Ringrose starting at 13. I don't think there's any doubt that he's our best out there, and he's such an important part of the Leinster defensive system that I think he just has to be the only position. I'll say Hugo Keenan's number 15 because once again, if he's fit, he plays. There's no real doubt in any mind about that. Number 14 is possibly the position where it's not really clear who will be in that slot. Ireland went with a weird one when they had Jamie Osborne in there. He's a left footer, and to have that big boot on the right wing is a little bit odd. Leinster, I don't think have done it yet, but there's always a possibility that they'll do just to get him to that back line. If not him, Jimmy O'Brien has played 14 before for Leinster and I think for Ireland. He had a very good game. After not having the best of seasons, he had a very good game against the Sharks. So if he's fit, there's a possibility he goes out there. But my choice would actually be someone who has not been able to string a lot of games together in seasons previously, but has gone very well this season and has just looked phenomenal in every aspect of the game between high balls, tackling, and scoring, and that's Tommy O'Brien. So for me, I'd have him at 14.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many choices there, and I agree with you on Tommy that he's ready. It's just when putting together this 23, it's not who you're picking, it's who you're leaving out. People are going to be left out of the 23 altogether, but I suppose that's kind of what you want. I suppose you want that competition for places, and there's a lot of players. There's some players not fit. That we get the injury updates every week, but yeah, that's a really good backline there. So we move on to Connor, who's going to talk about the pack.
Yeah, and just to throw in real quick, I wrote out a full 23 so I could see what you guys wrote compared to me, and and it helped me to pick pack players, knowing who would I then have on the bench. And interesting that I had mentioned Jimmy O'Brien as our possible for 14, but I think you're right that Tommy O'Brien's definitely worthy of the place there, David. So I think it wouldn't be a bad shout if that's the way we go. As for the pack, again, I think a lot of it writes itself. I think that Porter is without doubt going to start for us at loosehead. I think Sheehan will start for us at hooker. When we get to tight head, I know there are definitely people out there going, and Furlong start. I'm saying that his lack of game time at the moment puts Furlong on the bench for me. And Slimani, I think, has earned the right to be our starting tight head for this game this coming weekend. I think he has really shown that it's not just his ability in the scrum. He's really adapted well to how Leinster play. He's learned that there are other expectations of him, and he meets those expectations. There's a reason we want him for another year. So let's, I think he's earned the spot. And as I say, Furlong hasn't had the game time recently. I would have loved, and I know I said this in our own group chat, I would have loved to see Furlong go to South Africa for one of the games. And had he gone, I think I might be making a different decision. But I'm sticking with Slimani at tight head. When it comes to second rows, I think because of the implied contract stipulations, again, it writes itself. I think it's Joe McCarthy and James Ryan starting because a lot of people are suggesting that that contract stipulation says that Snyman can't start these big games if both of them are fit and available. So I'm assuming both are fit and available. And we've got Joe Mack and James Ryan. 8 for me is Doris. 7 is Josh van der Flier. And then I've got big question marks over 6 because I think that when looking particularly at the Ireland games and Conan coming off the bench has had massive impact. Like imagine psychologically you're playing against a team who hopefully are playing well on the day, and then you spring the starting Lions 8 from the last tour from the bench, who's hitting pretty similar form to what he was in when he got picked for the Lions tour the last time out. So it's a big question for me. I don't know. Do we put Conan at 6? It's not his strongest position. 8 is definitely where he plays better. But if you've got Doris Fitton on the field, he plays 8. And one of the things that's come out of this tour for me is Max Deegan. And the possibility of playing him at 6 instead. Again, he prefers 8 as a player, but I think if you're evaluating, who's got it in them to put in a really, really good performance, who's going to come off the bench angry because they didn't get the opportunity to do that, and therefore how do you pick your players based on that? I think on that basis, and I hadn't made a full decision yet. I was going to try and convince myself here one way or another. I think Deegan's earned the right to a starting spot. And I think springing Conan from the bench makes a lot of sense to demoralize a team afterwards. So I'm going to say Deegan at 6. And as I said, Van der Flier at 7. Because, why wouldn't you? And Doris at 8.
Yeah, it's an important theme, I think, to picking a team like this. It's not just who overall do you think are the best players. I mean, you have to take current form into consideration as well. And, you look at that tour to South Africa and you can't just separate them and just say, listen, it doesn't matter what you did on that tour. You can't play your way into them. When someone has a game like Deegan does, and someone is having a season like Deegan has, you have to feel that they're going to be involved. So yeah, I mean, he's got to be in contention for that 6 jersey. In fact, you could say we've 3 number 8s who, if they played at number 8, we'd have no problems with it at all. It's just that, obviously Doris is the captain. If he's fit, he plays. So that's that. But what you do with these other 2 players, Conan as well, that are in the form of their lives at the moment, and they're just busting it in every appearance. So when I look at the bench,
I think it's worth saying, I think that the fact that he played the full 80 on Saturday of this week and he's got a flight ahead of him, I think it's probably more likely that Conan would get the start ahead of him. But I think in an ideal world where you haven't just had a long haul flight and jet lag and having played at altitude and all the other things that have had going on, I think Deegan is worthy of the spot.
Oh no, absolutely. I mean, the remit here is more sort of an overall knockout 23 as opposed to who's going to play Harlequins next week. But yeah, you're right. So when I looked at the bench, but I was taking the form into consideration as well. And I don't want to knock Kieran Frawley too much, but I think the way his confidence is. And again, if we're talking maybe next week as well, but I think his form and his confidence might have affected our ability to go for a 6-2 bench if we need it. I think, and Ross Burns' form as well, I think plays into that as well. I think we're going to need him. He's been in every 23 we picked all season as well. So if you're going to pick Ross, you're going to have to go 5-3. So I think that kind of affects what we do. But anyway, going to my bench anyway, Kelleher, if he's available on the bench, if not Gus, but we're sacked with hookers at the moment. That's not really a problem. It's between Church and Boyle. Boyle has played really well. He's getting Ireland recognition as well. You'd almost want him in there, but the romance of keeping Church on until he finishes and his experience. He put in a great shift on Saturday as well. So between the two of them, I just go for Church's experience at the moment. That's who I'd have. I agree with you, Furlong. I had Slimani starting and Furlong on the bench as well. I think that's a right call. And I agree with you as well on R.H. Snyman. He'd be on the bench as well. What a person to spring from there. Now, when we get into the subs, the back row, I agree as well. Now, you think we don't want all number 8s, but I think Deegan has played his way in. I think you're talking Conan or Deegan for that. Baird is kind of he's one of these names we're actually leaving out of this selection as well. I think on form, you're talking between Conan and Deegan, one of them starting at 6 and one coming off the bench.
I think if you were going for a 6-2, that decision might be changed. But
yeah,
as you say, Frawley's confidence plays into that at the moment. And so 5-3 is the correct call.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, it's a whole different ball game if you're going for 2 back rowers. But I think this way we're going that way. So Luke would be my backup scrum half. Ross Byrne would be and then 23. Now I'm with David on starting Geordie. I think you have him. You've got him for this short amount of time. Those are the games where you want him, someone who's played big World Cup matches, big Super Rugby matches, knows how to perform. That doesn't mean Robbie Henshaw can't, but when you have him, you need to use him. But I couldn't leave Robbie Henshaw out altogether. Now this is going to leave out people like Jamie Osborne. If Tommy O'Brien is in or Jimmy O'Brien, one of them is going to miss out this way. But I think Robbie Henshaw is the guy you want coming off the bench. I think we have coverage for the other positions as well. So he'd be my 23. But listen, clearly in the time-honored tradition of the internet, I'm sure absolutely everybody watching this video agrees completely and wholeheartedly but with what we've selected. But just in case one or two of you might want to push back a smidge on our selections, please feel free to let us know by way of a comment. It's always a fun thing to pick these teams. And thanks to the lads for helping me out there.